1, 2, 3, 4.
Hello. So this is kind of an impromptu episode that Zaki and I just decided on the fly to start. So to those who don't know, Zaki has already been on the podcast before, and Hamara Zaki wala podcast was actually one of the more successful ones. It got a lot of views, and we talked about a lot of fun things. Zaki told us about all of his adventures at Facebook and whatnot. So I'm going to do a very brief intro with Zaki, but the main theme of the podcast today, जिस बारे में हम बात करना चाहेंगे, वो mostly है about AI and building products with AI. And Zaki, at this point in time, is actually doing that at Tome. So we'll get into it in a minute. I'll just give a very brief background. Zaki graduated from FAST in 2004, in 2008, and computer sciences, and then after that, he was working in local, in Pakistani company software houses, में काम कर रहे थे, and then he, climbed the ladder, and in a few years was heading the engineering team. But then after that, he moved to US. So he was heading the engineering team at Coes Solutions. And then he moved to US to start working as a software engineer at Yelp. Then he moved to Facebook and worked there as a software engineer for about 4 years. And in between that, he also contributed to the Pakistani ecosystem. So he was working as a technical advisor to AimFit, where I was working as a product manager prior to my current job. And there we met, and it's been a great friendship ever since. And right now, he's working as a full-time engineer. He was actually one of the first engineer at Tome.ai. I hope that's the right, yeah, Tome.ai.
Tome.app.
And Tome.app.
Tome.
And Tome recently made a lot of news क्योंकि वैसे तो बहुत ज़्यादा financial crunch आया हुआ है, and you don't hear a startup making news about raising money as frequently as we did before. But जब आती है तो you usually know that these are one of the better ones, because अब जब पैसे मिलते हैं तो वो बहुत ज़्यादा due diligence के बाद मिलते हैं. So Tome recently raised $43 million in their Series B, and that is to build an AI-powered storytelling software, which primarily is to kind of replace your existing presentation-based software like Google Slides हो गया या Microsoft Presentation हो गया. But I'll let Zaki talk about that a bit more. Zaki, welcome to the podcast. Welcome back. And why don't you give us a rundown on what Tome is and what you're building there?
Thanks. That's a great intro, re-intro. Yeah, at Tome, I joined Tome in June 2021, and we were building a software to do storytelling at work. But in recent days, we've realized that we should do a pivot towards AI, as these AI tools are becoming more economical and more available. So how can AI help you tell better stories? So we're building tools like AutoTome, it lets you generate a presentation, like a initial boilerplate of a presentation from an idea that you have, and then you can go and edit it. You can generate images. We are building a product to convert documents to a presentation. So a lot of exciting things happening in that space. You can ask it to rewrite some text. You can ask it to shorten or extend text, or even change tone from, whatever you wrote into something more intellectual or funny or persuasive, however you want to appeal to the audience of that presentation. So far, we are seeing a lot of traction for it, lots of interest from students, from founders who want to make pitch decks. It looks pretty sleek. You can't go wrong with Tome, because you can't mess up the image aspect ratios or make the text too big or too small and things like that. It just looks beautiful.
Yeah. Okay, so that's interesting. I know that you're more of a builder, and I don't want to go too deep into AI research, but if you could just give a high level overview of what you mean when you're building an AI product. Like आपने बोला कि Tome auto app बनाता है जिसमें you can ask it to kind of read a document and create a presentation out of it. What I want to understand, how is that different from, let's say, ChatGPT? How is that different from any other text generation model?
That's a good question. So basically, OpenAI, Anthropic, and Cohere, they are building foundational models right? These are called transformer models. They generate text, right? और they उन्होंने अपने अंदर बहुत सारी information internet की capture की हुई है in their weights of the neural network. So it understands a bunch of things, understands grammar, understands the context that you're giving it, understands some topics, and it can create output from that. So imagine that as a platform. Let me give you an example. Let's say you have a LUMS graduate, right? The LUMS graduate has done the bachelor's degree and they can do whatever they want. Now the thing is कि अब उसको use कैसे करना है, that's up to the startup themselves. So ChatGPT is basically saying, here is a very good LUMS graduate. You can talk to them however you want. So you can talk to them. But to get them to do something of value, to solve a user's problem, आपको उनको थोड़ी सी और ट्रेनिंग करनी पड़ेगी, थोड़ा सा कोई guard rails देनी पड़ेंगी, कोई format देनी पड़ेगी, right? So in order to make that LUMS engineer work in a bank, you have to give them some context कि अच्छा ये banking ऐसे चलती है, ये products होती हैं हमारी. Now when a customer walks in, what will you say? और ये हमारे code of ethics है, और इस तरह हमारी marketing team चाहती है कि आप बात करें. All of that stuff is you have to tell that LUMS graduate कि भाई आपने ऐसे काम करना है. Similarly, when we hire one of these AI models, basically तो वो text generator है, but we have to give it context on top of it. कि अच्छा, we are in a presentation mode, or this is our format. So Tome के case में there are tiles and there are images and basically there are tiles and pages, and tile can be a text tile, an image tile, a DALI tile, a table tile, etc. And different tiles have different features. So अब जब आप कह रहे हैं कि मुझे एक presentation बना के दो, तो it understands Tome's format and then creates a Tome presentation for you based on that format. So हमारे front end and back end talks to this third party OpenAI model or a Cohere or Anthropic model and gives it context, gives it some guardrails within which to play, and then output the result. Then we process it, then we show it in a presentation, and you have what you wanted, right? So that is what I mean when I say we're building an AI product, or any company is building an AI product, consumer-facing AI product. There are also like infra AI products as well. Yeah, other business-facing AI products as well. But primarily, when you're talking about consumer, that is what you're doing. So, for example, Duolingo wants to do their AI product. आप language सीख रहे हैं, let's say आप Japanese सीख रहे हैं, तो अगर आप पहले क्या होता था कि अच्छा जापानीज में हाय हाउ आर यू को क्या कहते हैं, तो वो आपको एग्जैक्ट आंसर दे देगा. बट व्हाट Duolingo is doing is like, no, let's take the Socratic method. Let's allow user to arrive to the correct answer. So वो क्या करता है, वो AI, अब उस AI को अपने ये context दिया हुआ है कि you're a Duolingo app. You don't give the exact answer. You ask more questions, and then in the Duolingo UI, it works magically कि वो आपसे क्वेश्चन पूछेगा कि आपके ख्याल में हाउ को क्या कहते हैं जापानीज में, अच्छा यू को क्या कहते हैं. तो अब if you put these two together, what do you think will be the answer, and things like that. It wouldn't give you the answer of hi, how are you in Japanese, but it will help you arrive to that answer, and that is their way of building this AI product. They could have built an AI product that just gives you the answer as well, but then you can go to any website out there to do that.
Okay, that makes sense. I'm going to ask you another dumb question. So, whatever you said right now, I understand that. But I understand that a lot of it is just built, like it's a redressing of sorts that's done on a model that's provided to you by, let's say, Facebook or Google, or sorry, in this case, OpenAI. From a founder perspective, or from an engineer's perspective, when you think about
Yeah.
इस OpenAI का मॉडल ये है ना कि उनकी जो फंडामेंटल लेयर है, आप उसके साथ इंटरैक्ट नहीं कर सकते, right? Like for example, whatever model that they've trained on, you can't tweak those parameters. अच्छा यार इसकी ट्रेनिंग जो है उसकी ट्रेनिंग को चेंज कर दो, और मुझे जैसे फॉर एग्जांपल a lot of people have on Twitter have been complaining कि जो ये आपके मॉडल ट्रेन हुए हैं ये बहुत ज्यादा left leaning libertarian. for whatever XYZ reason, right?
Hmm.
People have preferences. And I
Hmm.
heard this, in the All In podcast that there's going to come a time where people are just going to ये models जो है ये आपके ये एक platform बन जाएंगे जहाँ पर different companies will just have access to different flavors of models or different tunings of models और फिर उसके ऊपर products build हो रहे होंगे क्योंकि खाली
Yeah.
जैसे एक
Yeah.
चैट जीपीटी अगर वो आपके मार्केट डोमिनेट कर रही है तो फिर उसका अपना बायस है जो आप नहीं चाहते लेकिन मेरा कहने
Yeah.
का सवाल ये था कि आप उस फंडामेंटल लेयर को टच नहीं कर सकते और जब तक आप उस
Hmm.
फंडामेंटल लेयर के साथ टच नहीं कर सकते तो एनी प्रोडक्ट यू बिल्डिंग ऑन टॉप ऑफ इट इज ब्रिंगिंग यूजर वैल्यू obviously at
Hmm.
the end of the day a product needs to just solve a user problem which you guys are doing
Yeah.
but I want to understand that how is a lot more fundamental problems that we talk about in this podcast. Do you think those are also possible through just utilizing these models that are available?
Yeah. Yeah. I think so. आपके पास fine tuning के different levels हैं, and then you can you can do some fine tuning. So, for example, um, let's say you want um, you want OpenAI to or ChatGPT to answer you in JSON format, right? So उसको वो कभी कभी आपको JSON में errors देगा. You can fine tune it at runtime by giving it some examples. कि अच्छा जब मैं ये कहूँ तो आपने इस तरह आंसर करना है, जब मैं ये कहूँ तो आपने इस तरह आंसर करना है. If you give it like 5 examples, वो फिर आपको सही आंसर देना शुरू कर देगा over time. So that is like real time fine tuning. You can give it some examples कि अच्छा इस तरह करके आप अपने आप को improve कर सकते हैं. That is one thing. The other type of fine tuning is you can create a whole corpus of things, right, and give it to OpenAI's fine tuning endpoint or Cohere or जो भी Anthropic. सारे LLM models allow you to do some sort of fine tuning. और उस फाइन ट्यूनिंग में आप उसको एक पर्टिकुलर सब्जेक्ट के बारे में थोड़ा सा रिट्रेन कर सकते हैं. Now, typically that fine tuning happens in terms of like classification या some other form उसको teach करना है कोई format. तो आप you take 1,000 examples and then you run it through OpenAI, give you a model name. अब आप उस model name से बातें करेंगे तो it's fine tuned on your data. And that is, I think, very good. Now, coming to a more fundamental problem के जो आपकी social biases हैं या आपकी जो भी teachings हैं, उसको कैसे change करें? Yeah, if it's too left leaning or right leaning. I don't know if it is actually true. Anecdotal evidence है, social media पे भी लोग कहते हैं कि left वाले कहते हैं कि Facebook right leaning है, right वाले कहते हैं कि Facebook left leaning है, even though I doubt that any of that is very true. Maybe a little bit of truth there. Lekin over time, as these become more and more common, you will have LLMs that are trained on a different type of corpus that is more right-leaning or like leaning in a different direction. So एक तो वो मसला. दूसरा मसला ये कि अगर मैं एक स्टूडेंट ग्रेजुएट हायर करता हूँ लम्स से, right? LUMS या कोई भी university of course has certain biases as well. Obviously Stanford की biases हैं, Harvard की biases हैं, similarly LUMS की biases भी हैं. And वो जब workplace में आते हैं तो वो अपनी biases साथ लेके आते हैं और there are certain things कि एक LUMS graduate would not think that they can do. Similarly, there are certain things that a Harvard graduate would not think they would want to do, right? So this is a similar problem. You can then find people who are able to change their moral compass to fit whatever the business wants them to do. So similarly, LLMs आ जाएंगे और market में OpenAI के अलावा companies आ जाएंगी जो कहेंगी यार we have made this model, you can train it whatever you want and use it however you want. There are many open source like GPT-0 है, GPT-J है, Stable Diffusion है जो image generation model है. अब वो objectionable चीजें नहीं draw करना चाहता, ठीक है, उसको सिखाया हुआ मॉडल में कि आपने objectionable चीजें नहीं, you cannot jailbreak it for the most part. एक और बंदे ने प्रोजेक्ट स्टार्ट कर दिया unstable diffusion. It's an open source project. I think Kickstarter पे उसने fundraising भी शुरू कर दिया. And they're like, why have a limit? Let users generate whatever image they want, regardless. कोई इसमें barriers नहीं है. You can get whatever you want. So वो आ रहे हैं इस तरह के products भी market में, and you can use that. But I think that will take a little bit of time. और secondly, इन मॉडल्स को ट्रेन करने के लिए डेटा भी चाहिए आपके पास. डेटा होना चाहिए. फॉर एग्जांपल, लेट्स से अगर आप एलएलएम से कश्मीर के बारे में बात करें, सो देयर वाज प्रॉब्ली मोर कंटेंट from the Indian side of story than from the Pakistani side of story. Let's say you want to train a model that represents Kashmir as from the Pakistani side of story. So उसको कौन से facts पे train करेंगे? ये somebody has to invest money and time and resources into training that model to do this. और फिर उसकी product क्या होगी और उसको कैसे use करेंगे? तो वो आप in real world you can say, okay, हम एक university बनाना चाहते हैं जिसमें हम लोगों को सिखाएं the Pakistani side of this conflict, right? So it takes time and effort and teachers and everything. Books लिखनी पड़ेंगी, authors ढूंढने पड़ेंगे, professors बुलाने
Yeah.
पड़ेंगे जो ये सारा करें. तो इसमें भी ऐसे ही करना पड़ेगा.
Pakistani contribution can be all the YouTube bloggers that we've let out onto
Oh,
the
yeah.
world. Okay, no,
Yeah.
I'm saying that sarcastically.
वो दोनों side पे हैं, like everywhere. Like one of the things
Yeah.
I was adding in our show notes was the effects of AI. So one of the points is like we will see more creators in this new AI world as well.
Yeah, yeah. And you're right, for example, the human bias will also create human advantage and disadvantage. Obviously, people that have involved or invested in this technology, they also want to be able to propagate a certain viewpoint, and that's something that you can't just somehow decouple from humans. I want to move on to my next question since I know that you are on a clock. So, how do you go about building products with AI, right? I want to start with, so एक तो दो तीन चीजें, right? We are going through this period that everyone says कि वो जो एक होता है ना कि you have a product like ChatGPT that just came and blew everyone away, got product market fit really quickly, and that kind of attracted all the tech pros, and then you've just started seeing a lot of funding in this space. तो वो वही बात है कि कुछ बहुत ज्यादा ओवर हाइप भी होगी, बट वो ओवर हाइप के बाद एक साइकिल आएगा जहाँ पे फिर where good products will find their space, and the bad one would just be ironed out. So from your perspective, what are some of those good products that are solving genuine problems, and then how do you go about solving a problem through AI? How does AI give you that perspective कि अच्छा अब तक मैं इस प्रॉब्लम को इस तरीके से सॉल्व करने का सोच रहा था, but now that I have this tool for me, my perspective shifts. Or do you think that the perspective should always be more oriented towards the problem and solution जो भी हो वो बात की बात है?
Yeah, I was thinking about this today. एक तो चीज आपने देखनी है कि आप जो भी काम कर रहे हैं उसकी फ्रीक्वेंसी क्या है. So for example, you type, right? You type words day in, day out, very high frequency task. And at one axis you can say there is frequency, the other axis is, let's say, problem, right? And you can probably have a third axis that says value. So sort of like a three-dimensional space, if you can imagine. अब टाइपिंग है, वर्ड्स टाइप कर रहे हैं, ग्रामरली आ गया, ग्रामरली ने कहा अच्छा ये चीज लोग बहुत ज्यादा करते हैं, so we can use, and इसमें you're always rewriting words, rewriting sentences. So AI can help you search through the space of the correct answer much quicker. So higher frequency, high reward type of, high value type of thing, people like doing this. लेकिन फिर आप higher order चीज़ों पे चले जाएं, जैसे for example car manufacturing, car parts manufacturing है, and then you say कि अच्छा इसकी frequency क्या है? For Tesla, like they are making thousands of cars per week. They go through let's say उनकी assembly line में एक जगह है जहाँ पे let's say doors attach होते हैं to the main frame, right? और उसका error rate is like 7% and उसको train करने के लिए आपको ढेर सारी चीजें करनी पड़ती हैं. Then you see a problem that you can solve with AI if you can teach someone very quickly and they have high accuracy of doing that task, then that task is ripe for AI, right? अगर आप किसी भी चीज की थोड़ी सी एग्जांपल्स देख के किसी को सिखा दें और उससे उसका एरर रेट नीचे आ जाए या स्पीड तेज हो जाए, तो that product is ripe for getting disrupted with AI. With that definition, it may be a very simplistic definition, but with that definition, you can go into your product, look at it, and see कि क्या कहाँ पे issues are. So, for example, in case of Tome, you know, you start building a presentation, or the first place you hit a roadblock is, where do I start? So you can build a product that helps you start your presentation, give it some sentence, टूटा फूटा जैसा भी है, एक prompt दे दें, and we'll give you a starting point which you can tweak from there on. ठीक है, एक वो issue है. दूसरा ये है कि a lot of times you're doing a lot of small edits here and there. How can we help you find the best word? So it becomes a search problem. अगर आपकी search space बहुत vast है and you have to find a reasonable, good solution within that search space, so that also is a problem that is ripe for AI. So let's say you have a question, what fundamental problems do you see AI solving in next 5, 10, or 50 years, right? There's a question. How else can I word it, right? How can I word it in a way that a fifth grader will understand? अब इसको search करने के लिए, maybe I can sit half an hour, think of 5, 10, 15 different variations, or I can just ask AI, because AI kind of has that whole mental model already built. It can search very quickly and based on your context, and it can find you the right answer pretty quickly. So applying these two basic frameworks, जहाँ पे आप search space बहुत broad है, जहाँ पे थोड़े से action सिखा के आप अपनी productivity increase कर सकते हैं. Those are the areas that are ripe for AI. अगर आप server configurations बहुत ज़्यादा लिख रहे हैं, so can we show someone 10,000 server configurations and then ask them to build a server configuration in a very good way? Yes. So then AI is going to disrupt that. अगर आप financial transactions देख रहे हैं and you're trying to see कि ये वाली suspicious है, ये वाली नहीं है, classifying things. If you teach it to a human, will they be able to do it? Can you structure it in a way that AI can understand it? Then yes, your product will be disrupted by AI. Or I would go as far as to say your job will be disrupted by AI अगर आप खुद भी ऐसे काम कर रहे हैं कि आप ढेर सारी चीज़ों से गुजर रहे हैं और एक repetitive काम कर रहे हैं, वो सारी चीज़ें जो हैं वो AI automate कर देगा.
Okay, that's scary, but inevitable.
Even coding. So अगर आप बार बार एक React का component लिख रहे हैं कि अच्छा एक login page है, हर दफा आके एक login page लिख रहे हैं, why can't I show the AI a million ways to write a login page and ask it to write a login page? Then why do I need a human to do that job? But अगर आप इसको नहीं, or conversely, अगर आप explain नहीं कर पाते कि ये चीज़ कैसे होगी, for example, teaching is a very prime example. Teaching, let's say, Lahore Grammar School, pick any Lahore Grammar School or Karachi Grammar School class, let's say fifth graders, उसको teach करना. Can you automate this? So you can put it through the same lens कि क्या हम एक चीज repeatedly कर रहे हैं? Yeah, we're just teaching them the same syllabus over and over. But what you cannot teach is कि different types of students are there with different types of learning capabilities, with different issues, with different types of parents, with different upbringing, with different skill set. और वो इतना broad problem है कि उसको अभी हम explain ही नहीं कर सकते. ठीक है? So एक experienced teacher with like 30 years of experience would have seen so many, and every new year they learn something new. तो उसको automate करना अभी बहुत मुश्किल है. That is not going to happen anytime soon. Car driving, like full self driving आप कर रहे हैं, there are like so many different cases. They're not they're not there yet, precisely because उसको आप explain ही कैसे करेंगे? What is the problem? Problem को explain ही नहीं कर पा रहे. So अगर आप problem को explain कर रहे हैं और उसकी example दे सकते हैं, that's getting disrupted by AI. अगर आप नहीं explain कर सकते, तो your job is safe for now.
Before I move to the next question, right now, what are some of your favorite AI products that are solving really, really challenging problems that you think are going to survive for the next 20, 50 years?
I think ये जो OpenAI ने platform बना लिया, that's pretty good, and also ChatGPT product itself is really good. Bing search held a lot of promise, but it kind of didn't reach the mark. And from my perspective, it failed as a product. Like the first day or two I used it, my mind was blown, but over time it just degraded. So वो उसका मजा नहीं आया, but something like that, a search on a natural language platform is going to dominate, और इसीलिए Google को काफी tension है. I think over time we'll build companion bots that are built also on top of this, that can talk to you, that can play with you, that can, converse with you. I see some potential there in cars, in people's phones. We don't know what Apple is doing, but whatever Siri is doing, the rest of the world has moved so rapidly that Siri is basically very outdated. So ये वाली product चलेंगी. Then code co-pilots are going to stay for another many years. उसके interface, they're just getting started. There is a lot of room for more product development in terms of how code co-pilots work. So अभी क्या होता है, आप code co-pilot सिर्फ code completion कह रहा है. आपने थोड़ा सा कोड लिखा, वो आगे आपसे 2 steps आगे जाने की कोशिश करता है कि are you trying to say this? मसला ये है कि अगर मैं से कहूँ मुझे एक algorithm लिख दो, उसने algorithm लिख दिया. अब there is no user interface in which I can talk to it and say कि नहीं ये तो सही है, it's 80% there, लेकिन इसको थोड़ा सा modify कर दो. या मैं उसको कहूँ कि ये जो मैं कोड पढ़ रहा हूँ, ये मुझे समझ आ गया, लेकिन मैं इसमें ये 2 चीजें चेंज करना चाहता हूँ. Like in place editing of code is not there yet. Like even GitHub Copilot doesn't do it. It generates code, it doesn't automatically edit it. So code editing आएगी अभी very soon. I think humanoid robotics is going to be very big very soon. There is rapid advancement. I don't know if you've seen the Disney demo for their robot. It's mind blowing.
I see a lot of potential in AI, powered with VR. Like VR is powered with AI, right? I mean, imagine, you've played sim on a 2D interface in your computers, but, अभी तक सबसे बड़ा मसला ये था कि VR की capabilities अभी तो खैर, VR की real life applications तो बहुत सारी हैं, but just thinking about gaming and thinking about the generative, feature of AI models that we have right now, and imagine that in real time you could speak or, even maybe through Neuralink think about a world, and your VR, equipment allows you to be able to live that and imagine, like, give you the sensation of being that. I mean,
Yeah.
that sounds fascinating, and I've heard Apple is also about to release its VR product later in the year, and
Yeah.
I've heard that Tim Cook is going to thinking of that as his legacy, as his child, because all products up till that point in time, Tim Cook has done great from a business perspective, but from a product perspective, अभी तक वो jobs के ही products थे जो that ended up selling, and people not raised questions. You can't raise questions around the viability of a CEO that has made your market cap close to $3 trillion. But innovation wala jo arm hai, people were used to say Apple के साथ innovation linked है, लेकिन कोई ऐसा product नहीं आया, mind blowing product. So VR might be just that, but let's see.
Yeah, maybe. I'm losing interest in AR VR so far. I think, but I think AI से वो ऐसे solve होगा कि content creation is a big big problem, right? So AR तो exist करता है, आप AR glasses तो बना लेंगे, but who is making the content for the AR to project onto the real world, right? अगर वो ही नहीं होगा तो then you're not going to go anywhere. और वो bootstrap करने के लिए आपको सारे designers को 3D modelers को एक platform पे लाना, एक format पे लाना, एक system of units के ऊपर लेके आना so that it all sits well together in this world is going to be a big task. But AI can solve it. So NVIDIA का एक project है which is text to 3D model. So you can say, I want a car that is a hybrid of a Porsche Carrera 4S with a Ferrari F450, right? So it can generate that 3D model, or maybe it will be able to generate that 3D model. And then you can ask it, I want it in the size of a toy or as a real car in front of me. Then you can truly exploit the potential of AR VR. Otherwise, बहुत मुश्किल है. The human world is pretty complicated. You cannot make a 3D object by hand of everything that you have built in the physical world. It has to be a better, cheaper, quicker way to do all of that. Apple is in a good spot there, but I'm personally not that excited about AR VR anytime soon.
All right, that's exciting, Toka. But so, okay,
Yeah.
you touched on something in your previous question about, jobs are going to be automated and this. And, people like Mark and Andreessen and others, they were recently writing, human fear around technology overtaking them is a phenomena that's, as old as time. So,
Yeah.
and I was in this. I was also listening to Satya Nadella's. He was talking about. I think soon after ChatGPT's release, he kind of showed a graph where he talked about how if you map human productivity in the last 50 years, and you see that there hasn't been um, there have been step changes, but there hasn't been a seismic shift in human productivity.
Yeah.
That, for example, something like the Industrial Revolution did for humans, yeah, XYZ other such advancements. And he said that a lot of the fear around AI replacing current jobs comes from thinking that current jobs are what are the jobs that are going to be there in the future, in the distant future. So and we've seen this, right? I mean, like after internet we've seen so many job creation, right? I mean, the fact that आपकी पूरी की पूरी जो tech industry है जिसने, which I don't know, maybe it's the dominant industry right now. I mean, maybe not in terms of not in terms of workforce, number of people, but definitely in terms of value generation, I'm assuming. So I want to
Yeah.
understand
Yeah.
that what kind of future are you imagining with AI? What fundamental problems do you see AI solving in the next 5, 10, 50 years? And what kind of jobs do you think it'll create? And what kind of, you've already touched upon the kind of jobs that it'll replace.
That's a good question. I think about that a lot. So here's another analogy. Let's say if you could talk to anybody in the world, or if you could talk to Mark Andreessen or Mark Zuckerberg or Satya Nadella or Bill Gates, what would you ask them? What would you talk to them about? Let's say you could have 15 minutes, 20 minutes, an hour with them. What would you do? Right? And most people would not have any answer for that. So that's true. But if you do, if you're like, oh, I'm really excited to talk to, let's say, Malcolm Gladwell, then you're very close to, like, you're in the 3 or 6 degrees away from Malcolm Gladwell to be able to get there, talk to him, to like join his Twitter space or like some Discord channel where he's hanging out, or even talk to Stoop Dog in VR. He's throwing a party. So that has created that internet and communication has broken away the boundaries of communication, of wanting to talk to someone but you can't, right? तो अब सवाल ये कि if you could do anything, what would you do? And most people, again, would have no idea what to do. Like with Chat GPT, sure, उसके बहुत सारे मसले मसाइल हैं, hallucinate करता है, and could be can give you non-factual answers, wrong answers, but it can also do a lot. Like there's more stuff that it can do pretty well. But what would you, if you had a system that could do anything for you, what would you make it to do? So one of the profound things this week I learned was that AI solutions say you're slowly unraveling the true human intelligence potential by automating out everything else, right? And it's sort of poetic. Okay, you can ask that question, who are we? Where did we come from? What's our purpose? Waiting for some philosopher to answer that question. Or you can build a future where you're like, okay, I'm just going to tear apart everything that is not human. And we're going to keep doing this for year over year over year over year to get to a point where we say, okay, this is human and this is the atomic consciousness that we care about, right? This defines humanity. And so the way I see is that humans will get more and more free, more and more intelligent, and they will be pushed to do things that are beyond just menial tasks. Industrial age से पहले वो physical labor था, but with this AI age that will also include some mental labor as well. And then we would be working at a higher conscious level, higher level of understanding than ever before. So that is sort of the future. Ab usme it could go wrong as well because
Yeah.
maybe at the very, very core, humans are destructive creatures and they just want to kill each other. They just want to gain power or they just want to destroy the world. Or
I just feel like, for example, that fundamental question about okay, whether humans are bad or good, humans are just result or an output of the people around them, right? Of the situation and environment
yeah,
around them. So, I mean, it can be used for bad, definitely. But do you think that there is some fundamental, and I don't want
yeah,
to get too philosophical in this, but do you think there's some core element in our evolutionary, DNA that is self-destructive and, sees an imminent end?
yeah. My biggest fear there is that AI gets so powerful it can explain a human and their state at that particular instant, and it totally destroys the concepts of free will, and it totally destroys the concept of soul, totally destroys like all the other abstractions that we have created to keep us from going insane, but also to make sense of the world around us, to answer the core questions of who are we, where did we come from, where are we going, why are we here, all that stuff. I think robots going and killing everyone is one thing, but what if robots go and tell everyone, hey, you're just flesh and bone and you're just like hormones and you're feeling whatever you're feeling right now is because of so, and tomorrow you'll be doing so, and the whole world is just a giant state machine and this is the next state. Like that Oracle, that whatever super mega computer thing is that can answer any question. You ask it what is the meaning of everything and it gives you the equation. Like that is more scary than scary robots running around with guns. I think poverty or climate or ये सारी चीजें is it's to be decided if we will use AI to help to improve these. And I am uncertain whether the intentions are there, our intentions are good enough, even if we could use them, that we will use them. So it can go either way. I hope it gets used for the better of the society and for the better of the world. लेकिन उसके लिए कुछ आपको moral stands लेने पड़ेंगे. Again, we started the conversation with this whole point के left leaning है, right leaning है, like सिमिलरली पॉवर्टी के केस में या सोशल जस्टिस के केस में या सोशल सिक्योरिटी के केस में ये सारे क्वेश्चन आ जाते हैं. क्लाइमेट चेंज के केस में कि शुड देयर बी यूनिवर्सल बेसिक इनकम हैज बिकम an issue between, you know, left and right. Why is that an issue between left and right? I don't know, but it is. So अब अगर AI कहे कि भाई आपकी पॉवर्टी का solution ये है कि आप universal basic income कर दें, so it would piss a lot of people off and they would make sure कि वो ना हो. या अगर AI concludes कि universal basic income is going to be a catastrophe, we have done all the simulations and the simulation tells us that it's going to be a catastrophe. Will people be happy about it or will people be sad about it? I don't know. So बात तो फिर human decision making पे ही आएगी, at least for the foreseeable future, for this like next 50 or so years. But I hope we make good decisions out of this.
Yeah, I was listening to this podcast between Lex Friedman and Tim Urban. It's one of my favorite. Recently, Lex Friedman के जो है podcast में ये Tim Urban के साथ बहुत अच्छा. He's a guy who is able to articulate his thoughts so wonderfully. Like it's just amazing. उसकी एक नई किताब भी है which I've downloaded. I mean, he was talking about the fact that we can make a great world, like a world which generally there are no problems. And he was referring to some author who has conceptualized that and written, fiction novels on that. But he was talking about a world that's possible. But at the same time, we can create a world where it all just goes downhill. A very interesting episode. I'd recommend everyone who's listening to this to listen to that. All right. So to our final question, because I know that you have a hard stop. How does one future-proof themselves in an age of AI, in an AI world, right? Right now, like you said, सॉफ्टवेयर इंजीनियर की जॉब भी रिप्लेसेबल हो सकती है. तो ऐसे वो क्या चीज है जो बंदा अभी अपने आप को प्रिपेयर करना शुरू करे? व्हाट काइंड ऑफ इज दैट सम एजुकेशन, इज दैट सम माइंडसेट, is that some perspective? What do you think it is?
It's a very, very hard question. I ask myself that question. But I think जिस चीज में आप AI से आगे भाग सकते हैं for now is gaining and collecting a lot of experiences and stories and talking to people. If you put two AI models in a competition, considering कि उनका architecture more or less same है, let's say दोनों LLMs हैं, openAI ने train किया है, what is the difference between GPT-3 and GPT-4, right? GPT-4 just seen the bigger world, and that's why it gets to outsmart GPT-3. In a similar way, you can outrun AI by exploring a lot of things and really going deeper into things, but also having a breadth of knowledge. If you're in your teens, now is the time to do a lot of internships and jobs and figuring out how the human brain works and how the business works and how the world works, how money works, how banking works, how social norms work. If you're in your mid-20s, you get to be doing a lot of different types of jobs and working odd hours and trying to learn as much as possible about business and value creation. And in your 30s, you get to learn about how to manage teams and how to build enterprises and do all that sort of stuff. The more people you talk to, the more things you try, the more projects you fail on, and the more projects you do, the more likely you are to future-proof yourself from getting disrupted by AI. Conversely speaking, अगर आप अपने कमरे में बैठ के एक ही चीज बार बार करी जा रहे हैं, it's very likely कि AI आके will do the same thing just a million times faster than you at a millionth of a cost of yours, and then you're basically out. Right? So that's how my mind frame. Maybe we can talk in like 6 months and this has totally changed. But for now, this is the mindset. So, or in tools ko use karke, like you use them to beat them. Right? If you want to learn machine learning, ChatGPT के साथ कहें उसे कहें मैंने machine learning सीखनी है. Or ChatGPT will start talking to you about machine learning and take it in any direction you want. It's like talking to a professor. And machine learning के बारे में उसने इतनी सारी चीजें पढ़ी हुई हैं कि at least for the initial overview of machine learning, it will mostly not give you the very wrong information. Well, in factual inaccuracies and all that stuff comes much, much later. I have a Twitter thread. If people go back in my timeline, they can see that I started learning like catch a neuron kya hota hai, and they build neuron in Python, and then build a neural network and build a ML system that detects numbers. Build a neural network from scratch using ChatGPT. I have increased the breadth of things that I know using the tools that is about to make me obsolete. So I think that is the way to future-proof yourself. If you want to learn about banking system, go talk to ChatGPT and ask how, like what banks like Silicon Valley Bank do, how do they trade, what's the business model, and go deeper. क्या T-bills कैसे होते हैं, क्या काम करते हैं, what are the risks, etc. Just keep going down that rabbit hole if you want to do. And the broader your knowledge base is, let's say in economics, the better you'll probably perform in among your peers, and you'll see more opportunities, and you'll basically future-proof yourself.
So the age-old characteristic of being, insatiably curious is going to save you. It's what saved us humans throughout history, and it's what's going to save us in the future. Is what I'm getting from that. It's a very optimistic
Absolutely.
inference that I have from your message.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm an optimist. I have no neuron in me that is very dystopian. Sometimes I do get AI anxiety, but I overcome it very quickly. Like I was talking to my colleagues, ML engineers, and we're like doing these discussions a lot. We read research papers from OpenAI and other places, and every time it's blowing our mind. If you consume a lot of these papers, वो आपको एक AI anxiety होगी, एक feeling of dread आएगा कि you're going in the wrong direction. Yeah, my job is done. Like I'm useless, or this thing is so much smarter than everyone else. But then we also have conversations about curing that. कि नहीं, अभी भी there is so much more to being human, and this is just getting started.
Yeah. I've learned, and I think a big part of it comes by living in Pakistan because you have perpetual anxiety about a lot of other things. I know that you have to go, so thank you so much for your time. And on that note, we're going to close it. It was, as always, a lot of fun. And as always, I wish we could just stay for longer and ask more questions. But we'll call you again soon, and then we
Yeah.
can potentially in
Thanks a lot.
2-3 months' time or even sooner than that. तो फिर हम और भी बात करेंगे, पता नहीं कितनी और एडवांसमेंट हो चुकी होंगी या हो सकता है पूरी सिलिकॉन वैली डूब गई हो. It did almost last weekend.
Yeah.
All right, thank you so much, Zaki.